The dishwasher 3 floors down at St. Luke's ran its cycle every night at exactly 9:40, a low mechanical hum that climbed up through the vents and became, strangely, the only thing that told me what day it was. My appendix had ruptured on a Tuesday. By Thursday I was still flat on my back with a drain taped to my side, my phone propped against a pitcher of water, texting my roommate Priya to ask if she could feed my cat, water the one plant I hadn't managed to kill, maybe grab my mail. She left me on read for 6 hours. Then finally, totally on it. Don't worry about anything. Focus on getting better. 2 hearts. I had no idea what anything would come to mean. I'm 20 years old. My name is Maren Voss, and I want to tell you something about myself before I tell you what happened because I think it matters for understanding why I reacted the way I did, which is to say calmly and much later than you'd expect. 3 months before that hospital bed, I signed the lease on a 1-bedroom on Fenwick Street, in a building with a temperamental elevator and a rooftop nobody used, using money my grandmother left me when she passed. Not a fortune. Enough. Enough that I never had to think twice about rent. Enough that I could have furnished the place from a real store instead of the sidewalk. Enough that the number attached to it was nobody's business but mine and my lawyer's. To everyone else, my coworkers at the coffee shop, my classmates, Priya, it looked like I'd just gotten lucky. A family discount, I told people, when they asked how a junior with a part-time barista job could afford a 1-bedroom in that part of the city. Nobody pushed. People rarely do when you seem embarrassed about something. They assume the embarrassment is the truth. That instinct to look smaller than I was came from somewhere specific. When my grandmother died, I watched relatives I barely knew descend on my mother within a week, suddenly remembering birthdays they'd forgotten for a decade, suddenly very interested in helping with the estate. I was 15. I watched kindness get switched on like a light the second money entered a room, and switched off just as fast once people realized there wasn't more coming their way. I decided somewhere in there that I would rather be underestimated than watched. Felt safer. Still does most days. So when Priya answered my roommate at 6 months into living alone, and we hit it off over a shared love of terrible reality TV and identical opinions about oat milk, I let her believe what everyone believed. I wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation. I complained about grocery prices I didn't actually worry about. I let her split a rent that was, without her knowledge, already fully covered by the trust my grandmother had set up in my name, and I banked her half quietly because some part of me, the 15-year-old part maybe, still wanted a cushion nobody could see. Priya was easy to like, and I want to be honest about that because it makes what happened harder, not easier to tell. She had a laugh that filled a room. She always knew which bar had 2-for-1 Tuesdays. She was the kind of person who remembered you mentioned a bad day 3 weeks ago and asked about it unprompted, which felt like being truly seen. I liked her. I want that on the record. But there were signals, small ones, that I let myself wave off. The way she'd wander into my room some mornings looking for a charger, and linger a beat too long by my desk, picking things up, turning them over like she was checking for a price tag on the bottom. The way once she picked up a candle my grandmother had given me, a specific discontinued hard-to-find scent, and asked almost idly, "This looks expensive. Where'd you get it?" I told her it was a gift and changed the subject. I told myself that was just curiosity, just Priya being Priya. The first undeniable insult came 2 weeks before I ended up in the hospital. I mentioned half-joking that our couch had a permanent dent shaped like my body and maybe it was time for a new one. Priya laughed, not cruelly, I don't think she meant it cruelly, and said, "With what money, babe?" I smiled. I said something about saving up. I swallowed it whole the way I'd learned to swallow things like that, and went back to watching TV like it hadn't landed anywhere. Then I was in the hospital for 8 days. Ruptured appendix, a stubborn low-grade infection that kept pushing my discharge date back. First Friday, then Sunday, then the following Tuesday. Priya visited once on day 2, with a smoothie from the place 2 blocks from our apartment and a promise, hand on my hand, that she'd keep everything running smooth. I believed her completely. There was no reason yet not to. On day 6, a nurse handed me back my phone, which had been charging at the station overnight, and there were 14 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize and a single text from Mr. Halloran, the retired schoolteacher who lived across the hall from us and who had, since I moved in, developed a habit of leaving me tomatoes from his balcony garden in a little basket by my door. "Hey, hope you're doing okay. Quick question, is your roommate having some kind of moving sale? Saw two guys carrying your bookshelf out this afternoon. Didn't want to assume anything but figured you'd want to know. My hands went cold. In a hospital room set to 68 degrees in the middle of July, they went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the thermostat. I called Priya. She picked up on the fourth ring, a little breathless, like she'd been mid-conversation with someone and had to disentangle herself. Oh my God, hi. How are you feeling? I asked her about the bookshelf. There was a pause, half a second too long, the kind of pause where you can almost hear someone deciding which version of the truth to give you. Then, okay, don't be mad. I was doing a little decluttering. You had so much stuff just sitting there not being used, and rent's due Friday and I needed some quick cash. And I was going to replace all of it before you even got home. I swear I have a whole plan. I did not raise my voice. Something in me had already gone very still, the way water goes still right before it's about to do something. I told her I hoped she felt better about it soon and I hung up. I didn't sleep that night, not really. Around 2 a.m., unable to lie still any longer, I opened the app for the Ring doorbell I'd installed at the apartment door back when a string of package thefts hit our building. Priya knew about the doorbell. What she didn't know, what I'd genuinely forgotten myself until that night, was that it was still linked to my old phone number, a number I'd meant to update on the account for months and just never had. The alerts had been quietly stacking up in a corner of an app one hadn't opened in weeks. 11 clips loaded. I watched them in the dark, volume low, my foreline taped to the back of my hand. Priya, propping the door open with her hip. Two men in a pickup truck carrying out my desk. My bookshelf. A lamp that had sat on my grandmother's nightstand for 30 years before it sat on mine. A box marked fragile in my own handwriting, which I knew held her china, the good set, the one with the small hairline chip in one teacup that made it worthless to anyone but me, because I remembered exactly how it got there. In one clip, Priya stood in the doorway with her phone against her ear, laughing at something and said, clear as anything the doorbell's microphone had ever picked up. It's fine, she's basically broke anyway, she'll never even notice what half this stuff is worth. I'll just tell her I donated it if she asks. She'll never even notice. I played that clip 4 times. Then I set the phone face down on the blanket and lay there in the dark, listening to the dishwasher hum through the vents, feeling something settle into my chest slowly, like furniture being moved into a room I hadn't asked to have furnished. I didn't call her back that night. I didn't post anything, didn't text a single friend to vent, didn't do any of the things 20 feels entitled to do when it's been wronged. Instead, in the morning I called Elaine Farrow, my grandmother's estate lawyer, a precise, unhurried woman who had told me once, half joking, over the paperwork for the trust. The day someone underestimates you is the day you get to decide how the story ends. Try to enjoy it. Elaine walked me through what I actually had. The lease was in my name only. Priya had specifically asked not to be added when she moved in, saying she didn't want anything on paper, while she rebuilt her credit after a rough patch with an old landlord. That meant, legally, she had no ownership interest in a single object in that apartment, and everything she'd removed and sold without my consent constituted theft from a residence she didn't hold rights to. Elaine told me to do nothing dramatic. Say nothing revealing. Let the recovery process happen quietly, methodically, while I focused on healing, and let Priya keep believing for now that I was exactly who she thought I was, the broke, easygoing roommate who'd probably just sigh and let it go. People show you everything, Elaine said, once they think you can't do anything about it. So I performed normal. I texted Priya, NP will figure something out when I'm back on my feet, and watched her exhale relief through the screen. I lay in my hospital bed eating lime jello and scrolling her Instagram stories, where 2 days later she posted a photo captioned, obsessed with my new reading nook. My grandmother's armchair, unmistakably, sitting in what I'd later learn was her boyfriend Devin's apartment across town. I screenshotted it. I saved every story after that, quietly, the way you'd press flowers. Elaine filed a police report and attached the ring footage, the audio clip, timestamps. She tracked down 2 resale listings under a name that wasn't Priya's but used her actual phone number in the contact field. One careless mistake in an otherwise fairly slick operation. One listing had 4 photographs of my grandmother's china, including one where you could just make out, in the corner of the frame, the exact chip I would have recognized blindfolded. By the time I was finally discharged, 8 days, 2 delayed dates, 1 very persistent infection, Elaine had a folder 2 inches thick. Screenshots. Timestamps. Listings. The police report number. A formal notice already sent to our property management company confirming that Priya Anand had never been on the lease and had no legal right to remove property from the unit, unsupervised or otherwise. I asked Elaine to set up a meeting, not at the apartment, which still felt like Priya's territory in some undefined way, but at the property management office 3 blocks over. In a conference room with a table too big for the number of chairs around it. Priya believed she was coming in to split some move-out costs since Marin's clearly moving on anyway, a phrase Elaine had let slip to Priya's own leasing contact on purpose, just to see if it would get repeated back to us. It did, almost word for word 40 minutes later. She walked in already talking, already doing the easy, warm Priya thing where she greets a room before she's even fully in it. She sat down across from me, still in her work blazer, and said, "Okay, so I was thinking we just call it even on the couch and the—" "You forgot this," I said and slid a printed photo across the table. It was the teacup, her own resale listing, chip and all. Next to a second photo, the same teacup on my grandmother's kitchen shelf, taken the day before she died. I'd asked Elaine to print them the exact same size. I watched Priya's face change color in real time. In a way I don't think I'll ever fully unsee. That's not, I can explain the context, she said. Stage 1. Denial. Then, when Elaine slid the police report across next, still calm, still not raising her voice once, Priya pivoted, the way people do when the ground under the first excuse gives out. "Okay, but you clearly didn't even need that stuff. You never said anything about missing it," I genuinely thought. I let her keep going. Every sentence dug her in a little deeper, and I understood, watching her, that this was the part Elaine had meant. You don't have to say much when someone's busy undoing themselves. When Deb, the leasing agent sitting quietly at the end of the table, mentioned that Priya's name appeared nowhere on the lease and that she therefore had no legal standing to be in that unit unsupervised at all, let alone removing furniture from it, Priya reached for her phone fast and said, mostly to herself, "I have the buyer's number, I can literally just get it all back. This is insane, this is so insane." Deb closed her folder. "Ms. Anand, we'll be revoking your building access effective today. And this file is already with the police as an active theft report." I didn't gloat. I want to be clear about that because I think it matters. I sat there in that conference room and felt underneath everything something closer to grief than triumph, not for the china which Elaine helped me recover 3 of the 5 pieces over the following month, but for the version of Priya I had actually liked. The one who left the porch light on for me some nights when I closed at the coffee shop. People can be more than one true thing at once. That's the part nobody warns you about. That night, back in the apartment, sitting in the one chair Priya hadn't managed to sell, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with my surgery scar, which still pulled a little when I sat down too fast. I made tea. I let it go cold without drinking it. I just sat with the quiet. Priya moved out within the week. I heard secondhand, through a mutual friend, that she couch-surfed for a while before landing something at a call center across town. I don't know if that's exactly true anymore, and I've stopped checking. A year later, my grandmother's china is back on the shelf where it belongs, chip and all, because I decided the chip stays. It's proof it's real, proof it survived something. I found a new roommate through Elaine's daughter, a quiet vet student named Ren who has never once asked how I afford my half of anything. And somehow that not asking feels like one of the safest things anyone's ever given me. Some mornings I stand in the kitchen with my coffee, just looking at that teacup on the shelf, thinking about how something that small can crack something that large open. So here's what I actually learned, and I mean it for you, not as some tidy little quote for a screenshot. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. The version of someone who's kind to you when they think you have nothing isn't automatically the true version. Sometimes the true version only shows up once they've decided there's something to take. And you don't find that out until you're not looking. If you're the person in your friend group who's quietly been cast as the broke one, the easy one, the one who won't notice, you're allowed to let people believe what they want about you. You don't owe anyone your whole hand. Not your finances, not your history, not the reasons behind either. And if you're the one who's already found out that someone you trusted took something from you while you were down in a hospital bed or otherwise, you did not deserve that. Staying calm while you build your case isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's the only kind of power some situations will let you have, and it's usually the kind that wins. One practical thing if you take nothing else from this: if you live with a roommate, go check right now whether their name is actually on your lease. It sounds small. It isn't. That single fact is the difference between "we'll figure it out" and having somewhere real to stand. So I'll leave you with this. Is there someone in your life right now who you've let underestimate you on purpose because it felt safer than being seen? And how much longer, honestly, do you plan to let that be the whole story? Drop a 1 in the comments if you'd have handled it exactly the way Maren did. Drop a 2 if you think she should have confronted Priya the second she saw those clips. Drop a 3 if this one hit closer to home than you were expecting tonight. And tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Someone always seems to need one of these stories at 2 in the morning, from somewhere I wouldn't have guessed, and somehow it's exactly the one they needed. That means something to me every single time. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined to create original content. Any resemblance to real people, locations, or events is entirely coincidental. If anything in this story matched your real life a little too closely, please reach out to a trusted friend, a counselor, or your local legal aid office. You are not alone. And remember, sometimes the truth doesn't arrive with a crash. Sometimes it's just a quiet sound you finally stop ignoring. Pay attention. Stay kind. Stay awake.